This is Power 98.7. And now you're listening to Power Talk with Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. 9 a.m. to midday. Taking your calls on 0861 987 000.
Welcome back, Bantwana Benkosi. This is the section where we are going to look at the Department of Transport's annual performance plans, the financial year 2024-2025, as well as their budget, which was presented, as it were, last week, Wednesday or so. You would have seen the Minister, Umama Barbara Creecy. She's joining us. If you'd like to join the conversations, 0861987000 to interact with the Minister. But let me bring her in now. Mama, thank you very much and welcome to Power Talk.
Good morning and greetings to all your listeners.
Thank you for creating time. I thought maybe we get right into it, just as an icebreaker, maybe a sort of global summary of the key points of your budget plans and what you really want to achieve in your tenure as the Transport Minister.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And I think we must start off by saying that an efficient and effective transport system that enables the movement of people and goods is a foundation cornerstone to what is the main objective of this term of government, namely to grow our economy and, of course, most importantly, to create jobs. What we understand is that problems in our logistics sector have been responsible for putting a brake on economic development and job creation. And so it's very important that we need to move forward to ensure that our logistics system functions effectively. In this regard, we have set ourselves 6 main priorities for this term. The first one is to increase the amount of freight that we are transporting on the Transnet system to 250 million tons a year. Secondly, it's to improve the speed with which we are loading and unloading our ships so that we reach the international benchmark of 30 gross crane moves per hour. Thirdly, to make sure that our citizens, and particularly our working class citizens, have access to employment and education opportunities. We aim to restore our PRASA network and have 600 million passenger journeys per annum. Fourthly, we want to build on the new developments in aviation and make sure that we have 42 million passengers moving through the AXA network each year by 2029. Firstly, to increase air freight. In fact, we want to treble air freight because we know that there's a lot of demand from the electronics industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and also, of course, from our agricultural sector where there are goods that don't have a long shelf life. We think we can move towards transporting 1.2 million tons of air freight by 2029. And finally, but by no means least, by 2030, we want to achieve the UN target of halving road accident deaths because we know that road accidents are taking a heavy toll on our GDP and, of course, causing enormous human suffering.
I maybe just to create the proper context, Minister, if you could describe for us, like paint a picture. I know that the one, for instance, in relation to this impact of road accidents, there is a paragraph on your annual performance plans on page 47, which puts it at around 1.1 trillion rands. The cost of crashes that in South Africa. If you could maybe paint that for us, in what way and how do you arrive at this devastating figure of R1 trillion?
Well, there is research that indicates that road accidents are costing the economy about 3% of our gross domestic product a year. But what we also know is that over the last few years, we've been averaging between 10 and 12,000 deaths per annum on our roads. And of course, you would understand that if that is the fatalities, there would be 10 or 20 times as many injuries. And of course, many of those who lose their lives on our roads are young people. We know that driver behavior is a major cause of road accidents. And we know that things like speeding, driving under the influence, and of course, texting while driving are major causes of road crashes. What we also know is almost half of those killed on our roads are pedestrians. And these would be people who are living adjacent to major highways and who would be crossing these highways in order to get to work or to school. So clearly this is a terrible social toll and a terrible economic toll. And we do have to do something to get road accidents down.
And I see that of course, the numbers that they've put here, that the road fatalities across the world are now the sort of top 10 it moved from 10th to 8th position, surpassing HIV, tuberculosis, or close to 50 million, I think the report says here that the WHO has put in our country. But what then do you plan to do? If you could break it down for us. It seems to me from the press conferences you held earlier this year over the festive season that you were beginning to record serious inroads in reducing fatalities. But what is then the plan in this regard?
Yes, we are currently averaging a 9% reduction in accidents and fatalities. And this is really as a result, first of all, of increased law enforcement. We obviously have done studies. Where do the majority of accidents happen? At what time do the majority of accidents happen? And we're trying to make sure that we do have law enforcement officers on duty in those hotspots and during the peak periods, which are really from about 5 o'clock in the afternoon until about 10 o'clock at night. We're working hard on coordinating between national, provincial, and local governments so that we all are focusing on the same areas. Of course, partnerships with civil society are very important so that we have many voices giving the same messages about speeding, reckless driving, texting. Where I think that we have to do much, much more work is with these communities that are living adjacent to major roads and to highways. Because what we can see is that as we modify driver behavior, we're not actually managing to reduce pedestrian fatalities. And so I suppose that is going to require much more direct community involvement and community liaison so that individuals understand that even if a car can see you as you're crossing a road, speed means that car may not be able to stop in time.
And two things just before we move from road safety, because of its alarming fatalities, most people have often put the heavy vehicles like trucks as also responsible for some of the fatalities on the one hand and alcohol abuse. What is your reaction to that?
Of course, trucks and buses are involved in accidents, but our statistics indicate that the majority of accidents involve light vehicles, normal cars, and that in the majority of cases, the accidents are occurring because drivers are not adhering to the rules of the road.
Yes.
You know, in South Africa, we have this terrible phenomena of what we call a single vehicle accident. And that is where one vehicle leaves the road, rolls,
on its own.
injuring on its own. Now, that tells you that that driver is either driving too fast, or that driver is driving under the influence of alcohol, or that driver is busy on their phone instead of watching the road. So I do think that the responsibility for reducing the road death toll and also road accidents rests with each and every one of us and how we behave when we get behind a wheel.
Alcohol, and I forgot, we had an entire show about the fight against potholes. It's possible that precisely in this example you've provided, one of the things that may take me out of the road is the quality of the roads. I'm sure the budget speaks to that, the fight against potholes.
Yes. Obviously, what our statistics are telling us is that 15%, 15% of road accidents are caused by what we call environmental factors. And that can include the quality of the road. It could also include issues such as mist, rainy conditions, and so on. The budget has significant amounts of money that are being transferred to provincial road authorities for the maintenance of provincial roads, and also, of course, money that is being transferred to SANRAL for the maintenance of national roads, and also a further 3,000 kilometers of provincial roads, which we have taken over at national level at the request of provincial premiers. So there is an enormous focus on road maintenance, which I think is very badly needed, because we all understand that many of our regional and municipal roads are in very bad condition. I think what is of grave concern to me, and I did speak about it at some length when I delivered the budget in the National Council of Provinces, is the fact that municipalities are not using the municipal infrastructure grant for road maintenance. It's either getting diverted onto other budget priorities, or it's being returned to National Treasury. I think 4.5 billion rand of municipal infrastructure money that was intended for road maintenance was returned to National Treasury in the previous financial year.
Are you able to persuade either Parliament or Treasury for its ring fencing, as it were, so that it is sort of used for purpose?
Look, what we are doing, and I'm talking here about both provincial and municipal roads. In the current budget, we've earmarked 94 million rand to support provinces to spend their road maintenance budgets. And that's to make sure that we have engineers and other skilled personnel that can help provinces develop proper project proposals that they would put out to tender, but also to ensure that we conduct oversight over the spending of these grants, so that we don't land up with a situation where at the end of the year they're not spent and then they get returned to National Treasury. We've signed a memorandum of agreement with SALGA, and although I don't have direct authority to police municipalities, we're trying through SALGA to raise awareness with municipalities about the importance of spending their road maintenance grant, and also having a proper organized project pipeline for road maintenance.
I want to move to your program 3, which is the line item that actually promises job creation. And I think at the center is PRASA. I see that there has been a huge reduction in theft and vandalism with regards to signal cable. The numbers reduced from 515 incidents in 2019 to 2020 to 14 incidents, as well as overhead cables, reducing from 619 incidents to 10 in the same period. This is a remarkable achievement, it seems. Can you address us about, this program and the promise of jobs? How many jobs are you looking at, and how are you going to continue combating the construction mafia in the sort of PRASA lines?
Well, I think what is really important to focus on, first of all, is the important role that PRASA itself plays in enabling people who are living in working class communities to find work and to be able to maintain attending their jobs. In South Africa, we have a situation where a South African worker is paying 10 times what a Vietnamese worker who's earning the same amount of money is paying for transport. And that's because of the destruction of our rail system and the fact that passengers are having to pay huge amounts of money for alternative forms of transport. This budget is prioritizing restoring signaling on the PRASA lines. And once we have signaling, we can then increase the number of trains that we're running an hour. At the moment, because we're using manual signaling, we're only running 1 or 2 trains an hour, which clearly is not enough if you're dealing with peak period. On the vandalism, I think PRASA has really been extremely innovative. And the way in which they've replaced the signaling and also the cabling, as well as the way in which they've reconstructed substations, has by and large removed copper from the equation. And we know that cable thieves are primarily interested in copper. They've used alternative forms of metal and dramatically reduced the amount of copper. But of course, there's also a huge security contingent that is policing this network. The intention in the longer term is to introduce tamper-proof lines and digital technology to assist with the security aspects. So I think all of these things are really very, very important. The main areas of job creation in our ecosystem are, of course, in PRASA, where the actual repair of lines has been a major job creator, and of course also SANRAL. And both of these institutions are really very, very important in terms of giving young engineers that are graduating from technical facilities that year that they need of practical training so that they can be fully registered as professionals. And both institutions in different ways are assisting in ensuring that electrical engineers, civil engineers are getting the necessary training, on-the-job training, so that they can go into the marketplace. And I must say it's been one of the things I've enjoyed visiting these construction sites, is meeting these young people who are doing the most incredible work and getting this opportunity so that in the future they will be major contributors to our infrastructure program in government.
Again, you haven't given us an estimate of the jobs that your infrastructure build. Okay.
You've got the detailed documents. I haven't got them.
It's not my document. It's yours, Minister. But we're going to take the news. I do want you to maybe, for the sake of the record, maybe you can get somebody to quickly assist us, both Central and PRASA infrastructure build programs that you promise they will stimulate growth and job creation. Just the number of jobs you think this is going to create, and at what periods. Is that fair to request? Minister?
I will try.
Okay.
It's difficult when I'm using my phone to talk to you to phone other people.
Okay. I'm sure you'll figure something out. Let's take the headlines and we continue the conversation with the Minister of Transport, Minister Barbara Creecy. The minister is briefing us about the budget and the big plans they have with regards to our transport economy as a whole. If you want to join the conversation or ask any questions, 0861987000 is our studio line. We're taking the headlines with Nyakallo Tefu. Stay tuned.
Stay informed. Power Talk with Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, 9 a.m. to midday on Power 98.7.
We are still with Umama Barbara Creecy, Minister of Transport in South Africa, speaking about her big budget plans. And if you want to ask any questions to the minister, 0861987000 is our studio line. Minister?
I'm getting those figures for you, but they haven't come through yet. As soon as they do, I'll give them to you.
All right. The building blocks towards empowerment programs. You've got here Pillar 1 to achieve 60% ownership by taxi industry in all public funded integrated public transport network projects and taxi rehabilitation scrapping entity. Can you please speak to us about that?
Yes, I think that, let me say at the outset that the taxi industry is a very significant contributor to our public transport system and is currently responsible for moving 85% of commuters. What we understand is that it's enormously important that we must move towards a situation where we formalize this industry and also a situation where we work together with the industry to ensure that we have regular, normal business practices and where incidences of illegality and irregular practices are rooted out. In this regard, we are working very closely with the taxi associations, and most recently we worked closely with the president of Santaco to make sure that we dealt effectively with the dispute that arose between CARTA and Cadeta in the Western Cape. So I think to decode what I'm saying is competitiveness is a normal business practice, but that competitiveness must be normal competitiveness, not irregular competitiveness. So we would want to root out situations where there is violence and irregular activity, and we're working closely with the associations in that regard. Most operators are hamstrung by what they are paying in terms of repayments for new vehicles. And you would know that government for a long time has encouraged the scrapping of unroadworthy vehicles. But because the taxi industry is regarded as high risk, operators are paying anything up to 5 or 6 times as much as you or I would be paying as private drivers for an 800,000 rand loan, which is the sort of average loan that operators are taking for a new quantum. So we want to work closely with the industry so that we are using that scrapping allowance to de-risk loan financing. It's a partnership we're developing with the industry and also with the banks. Your average driver is making about 16,000 rand a month, but he's paying over 20,000 in repayments. So obviously that's just not a viable situation. And it's what leads to a lot of the irregular practices, because people are jumping onto what they regard as more profitable routes to try and deal with their debt problems and so on and so forth. Of course, what we also understand is if you look at any public transport system, you have depots, you have places where passengers are boarding. It's normal in that situation to have retail space, refueling space, car maintenance, vehicle maintenance space. And we know that a lot of our taxi ranks are just, if you're lucky, sort of gravelled, open places where there aren't those facilities. So I think that because we understand that there's high rates of unemployment, and we understand that many people are getting into this industry out of desperation, we are also looking at ways in which the normal upstream and downstream industries that you would expect to find around a transport node are also benefiting the industry, so that there's broader forms of investment other than just owning and driving a taxi.
I want us to hear this important promise by the president. I'm just going to play a small clip and ask you to speak to us about it. Let's take a listen.
Africa that has prioritized its rail networks and is producing high-speed trains connecting our megacities and the remotest areas of our country. We should imagine a country where a bullet train passes through Johannesburg as it travels to Messina, and it stops in Buffalo City on the way from eThekwini to here in Cape Town.
As you know, Minister, this is a big promise that the president has been on top of for a while, and in what he termed the National Rail Master Plan. I couldn't quite get it in the documents I have, but are you able to brief us about this promise of the speed train, both for PRASA, passenger rail, as well as Transnet for goods?
Yes. So let me start off and say to you that the Master Rail Plan is something we will issue for public comment later this year. And this plan is the vision for what our rail network will look like between now and 2050. Across the world, we're seeing a situation where there is a revitalization of rail, both for the movement of people and goods. And the reason is that it has the potential to be quicker, safer, and cheaper. And of course, it also assists with meeting the carbon reduction objectives in relation to our climate commitments. Now, there hasn't been major building of rail, except for the Gautrain, since the 1970s. So this master plan is asking the question, what will rail look like in South Africa in the future? Linked to that is 3 areas for high-speed rail that have been approved. The first is from Gauteng to Messina, the second is from Gauteng to Mbombela, and the third is from Gauteng to Durban. Now, the question that we have to ask is, given the current budget constraints and the constraints that Transnet and PRASA are facing, where would the infrastructure investment come from to build these lines? Now, we've already issued requests for information. This process has closed for our priority freight lines. But at the end of July, we will be issuing requests for information in regards to passenger rail. And these 3 lines will be included in that. And I think that what we're trying to assess is what is the appetite of the private sector to invest in this development and under what conditions. Once the request for information process closes, it would then go back to PRASA to issue requests for proposals towards the end of the year.
Okay, before I take callers, I haven't had time that much to go to the fourth priority regarding aviation. I just want to speak quickly to the road question. I don't know the total budget request you have made to Parliament, but somebody said there's a complication regarding the fuel levy, in that the changing nature of vehicles now, particularly with the Chinese vehicles that are smaller but they're able to take long trips, there's a reduction, as it were, to what you are collecting through the fuel levy, complicating, as it were, the number, or rather the budget itself. Is this in any way affecting, as projected by some of these experts, your capacity to raise money?
So let me say at the outset that the fuel levy is collected by National Treasury, not by the Department of Transport. And where we benefit from the fuel levy is that this is where the money for the road accident fund comes from, and the money is intended to be used for the victims, to compensate the victims of road accidents. Indeed, if one looks into the future, where there are likely to be a greater number of electric vehicles versus petrol vehicles, one is likely in the longer term to be seeing a situation where there would be a reduction in the fuel levy. And I suppose this is a longer term or medium term risk that National Treasury would have to be assessing in how it wants to deal with its revenue sources going forward.
Okay, if you've just joined us, this is Power Talk, Bantwana Benkosi, and we are with Umama Barbara Creecy, the Minister of Transport. You all have 30 seconds to pose your questions. We don't have much time. Eddie in Centurion, welcome to Power Talk.
Yeah, good morning, Doc. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, thank you.
Quick and brief. Good morning, Minister. Minister, I just want to, as we run the business of shuttles in the airport and around Gauteng, we're having a big problem with the Gauteng Traffic Department. And when we questioned them, they said you are not their minister, they run under the Gauteng province. My biggest challenge is on weekends, they normally go to OR Tambo Airport and impound cars. So once they impound a car, you have to pay 5,000 rand. So normally their target is 10 cars, which is about 50,000 rand. So it means they came there every weekend to make 100,000. So, and then we have applied for the permit, we've got the OLAs. But since, like myself, I've applied last year in August, I even received the permit as years or any correspondence. Every time you go there, they will tell you there's no budget. Please assist us. And the secondly and last one is the license machine, which is also a big problem. Since we applied for driver's license, still we haven't received our driver's license. I hope you will really assist us, Minister. Thank you very much.
It's Eddie there in Centurion. Makuntle in Sebokeng, welcome to Power Talk. 30 seconds, please.
Morning, Doctor. Morning, Barbara Creecy, the Minister. My question is regarding the PRASA Blue Trains. I've noticed that in Sidibeng, Val area, the Vereeniging side, Meaten, Orange Farm, I think Sebokeng, we haven't seen the new blue PRASA trains. But I saw some renovations in some of the railway stations. I think it's Kwagastrom, it's also residential. When are we going to expect the blue trains, like that, the new ones from PRASA, maybe in our region? Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Mankuntle. Minister Creecy.
So let me say on the issue of impounding of vehicles, this would be people who are running a passenger vehicle without the necessary permit to run a passenger vehicle. And you would understand that this is a great danger to the public, because what it means is that a person may not have the relevant what we call a PDP, a public transport driver's permit license. The vehicle may not be roadworthy for passenger transport. So we might also have a route where we have already issued all the public transport licenses that can be issued on that route. And you can't just keep on issuing permits, because then you are likely to see violence between public service providers because the route is oversubscribed. So I can't comment on timeframes with regard to the issuing of these licenses. It is in the domain of the provincial government. But I can say that we can't have a situation where people wake up in the morning and decide that they are going to run public transport without the necessary permits, because it's a risk to people who, in good faith, would be getting into those vehicles. On the driver's license card, the machine is now working. We've also signed an agreement with Home Affairs so that in a couple of months they can assist us in printing, so that we eliminate the backlog while we are in court on the purchase of the new machine. With regard to the PRASA Blue trains, those trains are electric. So although I don't have details in front of me on the relevant lines, it could be a situation that cabling has not been replaced on those lines. So at this point, we are not able to run the electric trains. We're still using diesel locos. So in this budget, we've got money for cabling and signaling, and that is ongoing work that we are doing to rehabilitate all of our priority lines.
Okay, two aspects that one relates to the empowerment program in your 8 pillars under this theme. We spoke about ownership by taxi industry, but Pillar 7 speaks to 60% spend on your procurement goods and services from black-owned township, dorp and rural enterprises. What is the percentage at this moment? And is this 60% going to be achieved in this budget? But also, why 60%? How did you come to that? Why not 80? Why not 90? Why not 100%? And then the final one is the single electronic ticketing system for government subsidized public transport operators.
Well, let me say at the outset, I'm not sure what the current spend is, but if the target is 60%, then the obvious intention would be to incrementally increase the amount of spending that we are making on to small enterprises. Let me say that in Transnet, Sunrail and PRASA value chains, these are very important value chains for small enterprises, and it's one of the ways in which construction companies can move up the CIDB grading. It's also a situation in which a whole range of smaller service providers can be providing components into the system. So I think that this is it's a very important ecosystem, and it's very important that government spending supports the development of small enterprises and also township enterprises. And in all of the Sunrail projects that I've visited, we do find that in all of those projects we are involving small enterprises in the minor works and putting those projects into partnerships with advanced engineering companies that might be doing the more complicated work of construction of bridges and so on and so forth. Sorry, what was the other question?
The single ticketing system on yes.
Yes, this system is being piloted. Mm-hmm. It's not a very easy system to implement, because what it means is that particularly in the taxi industry, one has to move towards a cashless payment system. And obviously you would understand that in a big system like the taxi system where you've got many independent operators, it's a complex process to achieve. It's also complicated to then be able to allocate to all of the individual enterprises. So if you have a single payment system, it's very easy to work out what percentage of that would go to PRASA because it's one operator. But if you've got people catching multiple taxis going to and from work, then obviously it's a much more complicated system. So Antako has been piloting a system, and I think that we are trying to build on all of this pilot work that has been done and is being done. And it's definitely work that's progressing, but it is not without its complexities.
Just to follow up on the procurement policy, I mean, I don't know if you are able to sort of give us the figures.
I don't have figures in front of me. I really, I think that's quite unfair to expect me to have all these figures in front of me.
Is it, Minister? Okay, but I wanted to. It seems to me there's been a huge thinking within government about how your procurement muscle can be used for industrialization, for local industrial, for a sort of stimulating local industrialization. And I wanted you to maybe speak to us about that and and say the real figures that your procurement actually has, how much of government money is spent on procurement in the department, but what kind of industrial projects would be stimulated by your department?
So I think, first of all, it's important to say that our department is not involved in construction or industrialization. It's the entities. And the reason I'm saying that this question is unfair is that I have 16 entities. So in my head, I don't have all these figures. They are all matters of public record. There have been parliamentary questions on it. They're in the APP, which is a public document. So I think for those who would be wanting to do research, that information is available. But let me say to you that I think that we've got to look at we've got to make a distinction between the question of spend on micro enterprises and industrialization. They're not the same issues. Because if you are talking about industrialization, then and the development of local industry, in the PRASA environment, those new blue trains that one of your listeners was talking about, those trains are 100% South African manufactured by the Gibela Consortium. And what we are doing there is we take 145 tons of South African-made steel and we turn it into one of those blue trains. And it's a really amazing process. I have visited the Gibela factory. Now, what we've got to look at is if we are moving forward with the development of rail as a major form of transport, and we are looking at bringing in private sector investors into both the PRASA and the Transnet systems, what opportunities exist there to bring back the manufacture of rail into the country itself? Because 30 years ago, we used to manufacture rail lines in South Africa. We don't do that anymore. We actually import those lines. Now, if we are going to engage in major refurbishment of our lines, it's going to be very important that we re-establish the capacity domestically to produce rail lines, and that obviously would provide market for South African steel. So in the requests for information that we have put out, we have asked what is the appetite to procure and develop the South African steel industry as we move forward with major rail construction, because we do think that that is, of course, very important. Clearly, when we come into SANRAL, we'd be dealing with things like cement. Obviously, those things are produced in South Africa at the moment. And one of the things we know from the construction of the Gautrain is that that kind of major infrastructure project provides market for South African companies, which has been sorely lacking over the last 5 years prior to the COVID pandemic.
Okay. Unfortunately, an hour is not enough, but 16 entities is certainly a big ask, Minister. We'll try zoom into them as well, the CEOs, and bring them to the show. But thanks for your time, and thanks for speaking to us here on Power Talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the Minister of Transport. We're going to take a quick ad, then go to the news with Nyakalotefu.